Hi, I'm Cash, and welcome back to Cash Talks Football, where today we're going to kind of try to give you an overview, a bit of a masterclass. Well, this is really a masterclass into understanding football from all elements. Now, if you've already seen part one and you've seen how I've gone over all this sort of stuff, great. If you haven't, go watch some of that, because I will sort of be referencing some of these cycles and things in this whole mind map that I'm making will be available for free on my Patreon. There will be more free content on my Patreon coming up, so go ahead and subscribe to that if you want. I'm really going to hit it harder in the summer when I've got a little bit more free time. Apparently doing a law degree and advanced diploma in tactics and analysis with FC Barcelona, doing your normal job and planning everything else. Like, I've got to go see the King and Queen tomorrow with the missus for some journalist thing that she's been awarded, is taking a toll on me, and I don't really have enough time to put into all these videos and all the stuff I want to share and get out there. Now, what I'm going to run through here is going to give you a massive breakdown of what's going on in the Premier League, where it's come through, and why I keep talking about football is dying. Okay, this is going to make a lot more sense when you understand all of this nonsense. Now, when you're talking about most things in football run through 10-year cycles. So when I'm talking through, like I was in the first video in this series, about the talent cycles of players, and they're going in a 10-year cycle, it also works for the academy players. So you've got to think of everyone that's 10 now. Well, they'll be in 20 years. So what are they teaching in academy for 10 years is going to have an impact on the Premier League. So we're starting to see that impact already with all this tiki-taka, and everyone's playing the similar sort of possession-based football with the same styles, and the same type of players are coming through over and over again. Okay, so before we get there, we really need to understand how the FA has systematically destroyed football. It's absolutely killed it through the grassroots level, through everything. And all it really comes down to is gatekeeping. So first off, let's just talk about coaching licenses for a second. You need a coaching license. It's just like having a driver's license. It's a piece of paper. Lewis Hamilton is the Formula One world champion driver. I don't know if he is currently best driver in the world. And there's you. Who's the better driver? You both have a driver's license. Well, it's clearly him. So a license doesn't mean anything. All a license is doing is giving you permission to work at football clubs and making it harder for you to get up the ladder, become a good coach and do whatever. Now, I've got loads of licenses. It's relevant for me. But I've got friends that have been waiting 15 years to get a UEFA B license, and they can't get one. I just had another friend of mine who's been waiting 5 years. And what they ended up doing? Quitting coaching football. Some of these people have been coaching football longer than me for 30, 40. I mean, these are old people, but they don't want them because they're not progressive, and they're not one. He only coached his own women's football club, ran it for about 10 years, ended up folding the women's club because he couldn't take it to the next level, because he couldn't get the right license, so he couldn't continue. So it's just the death of the grassroots football, and it's bigger than that. You think, oh, it's just licenses. No, it's more important than that. So to be part of the academy for youth football, you need to be part of the, you need to be an academy. And they only give it to certain clubs. Well, you have to be a professional club. So not everybody can be an academy. Well, what does that matter? Well, it does matter, because think about it. If you've got 4 clubs in your local area where your little Billy and little Johnny are playing, where are they going to play? At the local club where the good coaches are, or the other club that's called a professional club with bad coaches, but they're in an academy? They're going to go to the academy because there's a prestigious thing behind it. So now this academy doesn't have to compete with all these grassroots people at any level, because, well, they're an academy, and we're doing the FA pathway to being a footballer, and all this pathway to all this nonsense. And here's the truth of that: if anyone follows a pathway to be a football Premier League player, no one will be in the football. You just won't make it. If you follow the FA guidelines coaching, you will not make a single decent player. They all think they are, and I'm going to come on to that in a minute, and I'm going to break down all of the youth coaching and why we're doing this. And this is having a profound impact, as you can see in the modern game. It's all stale. I just watched Mark Goldbridge prattling on about he's going back and watching old games in the early 2000s and how much more dynamic they were and how much more skillful the players were. And he's right, they are, because they're not allowed to coach that. They Nintendo coach them. So what do we mean Nintendo coaching? It's one of these things that we used to talk about. The players don't actually think for themselves. They just follow a system and set of rules. And the coach on the sideline is saying, you need to go here, you need to pass there, you need to pass here, you need to pass there. And if they don't get to play. That's it. And it's all the same structure. And I'm going to break that down even further. And the amount of detail that we're going to get into here is going to be huge. And you're going to start to understand a little bit about how much knowledge I've got in actual football. So here's all the guideline. Well, it's a small overview. I'm going to do more in-depth details on these videos when I've got a little bit more time. I just wanted to get this out on the international break, and I haven't really done enough work on this, what I really want to get into. But basically, the FA can pull your accreditation of being an academy at any time if they basically feel like you don't meet their rules and requirements. What does that really mean? If you're not doing what they tell you and coaching the way they want, a review of the licensed academies ensures high standards. No, it doesn't. It just means that you can only have the coaches in that have got to that standard. And we're the only ones that can allow them to be on that course that you pay for. So we can control who's coaching what, where and when. It's insane. And ultimately, it stops one simple thing. Competition. Competition is what makes football players better. Competition is what makes academies player. Competition strives people to be better. When you eradicate all the competition and you go, oh no, you can only be an academy if we decide. You can only be a coach if we give you the right accreditations. Yeah, how about if my team beats you on the weekend? Goes back to, I can't remember the license I was doing. And the guy went on a little bit of a rant about where should you let players do skills and moves. And everyone had an opinion, and I just waited and said, how old is he? Well, let's say he's 16. I said, do it whenever you want. He goes, yeah, but what if he makes a mistake in his own 18-yard box and we can see the goal for it? Well, he's going to learn then, isn't he? You don't stifle the creativity. You let them do it wherever you want. And he couldn't understand it. He goes, no, you only can do that in the final third. Only express your skills in the final third. No, not when he's 16. Maybe when you're in the Premier League and you're trying to win a trophy, maybe you want to sort of squeeze the rules there, but not if you want to make good football players. You don't do that. You just let them go and see what they learn and don't learn and guide them down those lines. So what happened years ago, we're going to cover some of this as well. Winning doesn't matter at the youth level. Oh, but let's cover that now as it goes on to that. So this is what happens, and these are the types of players you can see we're breeding now in the modern society. If you take these two players, Marcus Rashford and Jadon Sancho, you can see that they've been coached in this modern youth system where in the youth academy, it doesn't matter if you win or lose. They don't keep score and all that rubbish. You can see it. You can keep hearing this thing and people talk about it all the time. My team needs a good, strong leader. Well, they're not making leaders. They have no intention of making good football players or leaders. They're just trying to do the system and try to keep them out. Well, we all know it matters if you win or lose. And that drives a mindset. And if you're not doing that when you're 7, 8, 9, 10, 14, 15, 16, you ain't going to be doing it at 25 to 30 because what you've been programmed to do back then is what you're going to do now. And you've been told it doesn't matter if you win or lose. Well, it does. And that's the problem with the modern players having weak minds. When you are younger, you can go through more adversity because it doesn't matter. What does that mean? If you lose 15-0, you can brush it off and go and win next week, right? When you lose 15-0 when you're in your 20s, it's a problem because you're going to get fired. So there's a huge difference. You can afford to do certain things when you're younger that you can't do when you're an adult playing football. And they completely don't understand any of this. They don't get it. And there is a point of protecting your players and understanding which how you're putting them in environments that they can compete in, and that's another big problem. So think of it this way. I had some idiot coach in England saying, well, my team hasn't had a goal scored on them in 2 years, and I've just gone, every single one of those players are going to quit football, and he doesn't understand it. So because he's playing weak teams, his parents and the kids think that they're really, really good at football. Well, they're playing weak teams in bad leagues to look like they're really good at football. So what he's adversely done, and the FA has allowed this to happen, all those kids that they're beating every week, they all quit football because this team shouldn't be in those divisions in the first place. All those kids that are winning every week are going to quit football because they've never been challenged. They haven't been losing week in, week out and come back and then win and then see how important that win was for them. So the moment they come against some adversity, they're all going to quit. And lo and behold, guess what happened to his team? Yeah. But let's move on to actual technical stuff. So what happened a long time ago is they all started talking about small-sided games, okay? Numbers of players on the field in the youth level instead of playing 11v11. Now, the 11v11 fields have always been structured from different play sizes for different age groups. So I'm trying to do this all in one take, but every now and again I'm going to pause to grab a sip of a drink. So when you're playing with small-sided games, first of all, small-sided games are, they're set on this fallacy, less players on the field, you get more touches. It's completely and utterly wrong and a lie. But when you're talking to coaches, generally your ex-football players, they're complete and utter morons. So when you say, when you've got less players on the field, you're going to get more touches with the ball. Oh, that makes sense. Okay, well, there's less people, so there's 6 people on the field, one football instead of 11. Yeah, they're going to get more touches. It's actually completely and utterly false because, again, they don't know what they're doing. If you want more touches, you have more training sessions. You do not diversify the game down to something that isn't real, and you don't, because they don't play offsides, they do all these stupid things. All you're doing is teaching a game that doesn't exist. That isn't the game they're going to play when they're later on. They're not playing by the same rules. If you start playing 11v11 under 11s, under 12s, and you keep doing that, your team and your players will be better than any other players anywhere, I'm telling you, because they've got more experience. They know about the size of the field. They can tell whether or not they need to run harder or not because they're spatially more aware. It's a completely different world. When we were having this, I can remember, friend of mine, he was Jay Miller. I'll just name drop him. He was coaching the men's US national team, and we were talking about this whole problem about small-sided youth games. And he just turned around and said, yeah, well, we know that it's all wrong and we'll just ignore it. Let all these other coaches do it because we'll forever be better than them because they'll be 4-5 years behind us all of the time. So the problem is the system, the FA, the gatekeepers have told everybody that this is the way forward. And I'm going to break it down into massive sort of. So one of the most important things is field size. Okay. Oh, actually, let's tell you the real reason why they were trying to do it. So here's the real reason. You've got one 11v11 field. Okay. But now I can have 4 6v6 fields on it. And then 2 8v8 fields on it, or 9v9 on one field. So how many more teams can I have playing at the same time, and how much more money can I create for my little football club if I play 6v6 games and 8v8, 9v9 games into 11v11? Have the little kiddies in the morning, by about 12 have the next set, by about 2 o'clock in the afternoon have my 11-a-side games. Oh look, I can have loads more teams, loads more money, and it's so much easier. That's the reason they're playing small-sided games. No other reason. Okay, so let's break down square footage so we can start to have an understanding, okay, of what's going on in small-sided games before we get to the Premier League. By the way, this started in the early 2000s. This has a massive impact in the Premier League. It's why you don't get skillful players. It's why you don't get players that run around dribbling the footballs who can't do it, because that's not how they're coached. They're coached to hold their shape and pass the ball, nothing else. Because real truth, they can't coach it. So let's break down the start of why you don't get more touches on a small-sided field. So space is time. The more space you have, the more time you have on the ball. So as we can see, square footage on a field, on an 11v11 field, right, you've got more square foot per player, almost 180 more square feet than you do on a 6v6 field. So what does that mean? You have more time on the ball. So when you are young, your mental cognitive isn't there, and you're trying to learn to do things, you've got more space. More space is more time. More time on the ball means you can make more creative decisions and do things. So when you're not in an area where you don't have a good first touch, because you're still a child, and you don't have these ideas in your head of where I don't know where I want to dribble, pass, or do whatever, you don't have time to do it. So the only thing you can do is what you've been programmed to do by the coach. Just do A. Okay, I get the ball and do A, because then he knows he's safe, because he doesn't have time to make any other decisions. And you can directly look at that through each level and each field. But then you'll go, okay, this is a whole difference of, if you want to read through this, of space equals time, the creativity on the ball, the passing and the moving, ball control, all the strategical elements of it. I've broken it all down there so you can have a little read if you want. Now, the other problem you've got is the ball is out of play more. In the Premier League, the ball is typically out of play for about 54 minutes and 49 seconds. You can tell I'm going in my analytic stage when I was writing this, on average, which is roughly 55.9% of the total match time. That means the ball is out of play approximately 35 minutes and 11 seconds per match. That's why they keep trying to add on these times, because they look at that 35 minutes and they want that to be played. That's where all that nonsense is coming from. Okay, that's worse on a 6v6 field. Much, much worse. Okay, not only that, it's all set plays. So it's goal kicks and throw-ins, goal kicks and throw-ins. Well, they can coach goal kicks and throw-ins, so they enjoy all of that. But the other thing that you've got to understand is running gates of an adult. What's the running gate? How long the legs are of a player. Here I break it down, the minimum yardage footage of the running gates of adults and children to show you the different impacts. So they can say, oh, a kid can't run as much because it's a full-size field. Utter nonsense. I break it down all here if you want to stop and go through all of that and have a look at it and understand that. I'm not going to waste your time reading it to you. You're old enough and big enough to read it yourself. Now, the other part is which is the most important part, is speed of thought. So, when you get players coming into their prime and they say they're about 24, 26, that's because their brain's finally fully developed. So their consciousness of thought is now able to keep up with what their body can actually do. And that's why they can become better football players. They understand things. The core of their brain is actually functioning properly and they can do things. Okay. When you're actually at a child level, they can't. And trying to treat them the same as you go, oh, this is how the adult brain works, so this is how the child brain works. And remember, we're classing a child as anything under the age of 24. You've got to think of it that way. Their whole reaction time is different. Their brain works different. And you're not actually making it, when you're playing in these small-sided games, being able to adapt to the 11v11 game. Your tactics might be able to, but the player can't. And you're seeing that with every single player now that's coming out isn't mentally strong. They're just generic. So what do we mean generic? Generic wide player. Pick one. They're all the same. Generic midfielders. Pick one. They're all the same. Okay, but Rodri's different. Yeah, there's always the outlier. But we're talking about the 95% of players. We're not talking about the top 5. The top 5 players will always be great. That's great. But they are only as great as the bottom 95% push them. The better that 95% is, the better that top 5% have to become. Okay, so the other thing that people will complain about is lung capacity, and that this is a valid complaint with why you're trying to play on a small-sided field. But all you end up doing, and this is the point of lung capacity, and it's after the age of 12. After the age of 12, it doesn't make any difference. That's why you have different lengths of the game. That's why the game length is shorter when you're at the youth level over the adult level. It's because of the lung capacity. That's the only valid argument about playing small-sided games. But even then, it's not, because if you've got more players on the field, you're actually letting other players recover more and actually help their lung capacity, not being able to get enough oxygen in, because everyone can take a breather because there's more players on the field to help them recover and do things. They're not isolated. So even that argument is a nonsense. But you've got to bear in mind, every single academy in England and most places in the world will be swearing blind that, well, no, small-sided games give us more touches, because they have no visual acuity to be able to break something down and understand that every single thing about that is fundamentally wrong. Everything from the speed of thought, to them being able, the ball being out of place, the amount of space they have on the ball, the decision making. They've got no clue whatsoever. And what they'll use is examples like Barcelona or Ajax. Well, yeah, you're at Barcelona and Ajax. You've got some of the best 10-year-olds in the world. You can train them differently than you can down at your village team or down at whatever Yeovil Town or Birmingham City. You're not on the same footing as Barcelona. You're not playing with the same level of talent. Even at the Arsenal academies and the Man City academies are not on the same level of talent as someone like a Barcelona. So you can't use that one outlier to make it right for every other football club. It doesn't work like that. It's just rubbish. So let's just move this on a little bit more, because what else did I want to talk about? Oh, there's loads. There's loads more. But I'll cut it short there. I'm only going to make it a little 20-minute video. I will get into more depth on this as well. Oh, I know I wanted to talk a little bit about. I haven't shown you enough, put enough of this work into this yet as well. The reason why they're also doing that is because the transition between coaching a 6v6, 7v7, or 9v9 team to an 11v11 team enables them to coach a 4-3-3. Okay. When they're coaching the system, what they don't have to do then is, because this is where I haven't done enough work on this yet, is you can stop and you can read this about wide players and defensive midfielders. When you're playing a proper system of football in a 4-4-2, you have to have two midfielders that can play the game of football. They need to be able to understand when one's going forward, the other one comes in and sits and holds, and when the other one comes back, the other one sits and holds. They can't coach it. That's why they don't do it. They can't coach it. What it's easier to do is for me to coach one player who sits and does nothing. So when the ball gets run, he can sit there and he can do this. Instead of having two players, like here, two players, and when he's going, he's coming over to cover, and then your left wing is coming over to cover over here. They don't need to do that. All they need to do is coach these three midfielders to go over like this together. And it's really, really simple, because if you look at the system when you're playing with a 4-3-3, how many players do you have out wide? 1, 2, 3. How do you have out wide here? 1, 2. They always have a number advantage. Oh, I just moved the whole thing. Whoopsie. They always have a number advantage. So it's really easy, if you're a bad coach, to have a number advantage on that side and a number advantage on that side, and you have a number advantage in the middle, but you don't have a number advantage up front, right? Then the other problem, okay, why is that important? So it's really easy for them to win the ball and keep the ball and stop you from passing the ball. What a 4-4-2 system is really difficult at teaching you is how to be a dynamic team when people go forward. Does my right back actually overlap? No, because he only really change it from so we got 2 at the back, 4 here and then 4 there. The left and right back don't really get involved in the players much. But also we have 2 strikers. Have you noticed there's no teams in the world that play with 2 strikers? Well, because they haven't done it in the youth level. So for 20 years, if they haven't coached strikers to work together, or 2 midfielders to work together, or 2 centre backs to work together, you don't have it in the Premier League. That's why you don't have a strong middle, because they haven't coached it. They can't. Because it's easier to tell this one player to stand still and we'll pass the ball to you, and if you're in trouble, pass it to him or to him. Whichever, if the ball comes in this side, go out the other side. That's it. That's all they're doing. This player doesn't really learn to play football. He's not going to win the game for you. He's not going to dictate the tempo. And they'll go, oh yeah, but Rodri does. You can't use the outlier for the other 95%. It doesn't work. And that's why you look at teams that are trying to do this, that might work in the Championship, and when they come through to the Premier League and the other teams are a little bit more athletic, challenging you a little bit harder, they can't compete, because really this system is fine when you're playing against other teams that aren't as organised, and you can overload them because you've got 3 on the side, you've got 3 up front, you've got 3 in the midfield, but you're always exposed the minute someone has 2 strikers on you there, and then they have a midfielder coming running from the deep, and you have someone who can sensibly play football, and all of a sudden your whole system is destroyed because your left and right backs come in cover and everything is gone. But they don't, because they don't teach it in the youth level. And finding players that you can get to be mobile and adapt and move around, just look at what Ruben Amorim's having trouble with at Man United now. They're all cookie cutter players that can only do a certain job, certain role, certain responsibility, because since their upbringing in football, that's all they've been able to do. And it's so important that people understand what's been happening in the youth level for 20 years, because now when they're looking at the modern football player and going, well, they're weak-minded. Well, yeah, because they've come through the academy system. They can't really play in anything but a certain system. Yeah, because they've come through the academy system. They don't really take players on. Yeah, well, yeah, they've come through the academy system. They don't shoot from outside the box anymore. Yeah, because they've come through the academy system. And when you start realising that all of those types of players, and that's why football, in my opinion, is boring. Really boring to watch. You don't see good games. You don't. Because they're all trying to maintain possession in zone 1, to go into zone 2, to make a chance in zone 3. They're all following the same formula, the same rules, the same thing, and they're all doing it. Why? Because if they don't get their accreditation as an academy. The FA guidelines will shut them down. You're not doing what we want you to do. And as I go back to over here, there's loads of types of pizza. Let them make it any way they want. You don't know what's going to be successful or what is. So let them make all the pizzas that they want. And the more that you don't have that competitive edge and that competitive nature, you're going to see the same things in football, and it's going to get worse. And that's why I keep telling you, football is dead. Other than that, let me know what you think in the comments below. Some of you, I love your comments, by the way, and I'll see you next time on Cash Talks Football.